we are ready. Of course you can. Of course you can. So, Talkaoke is simply a pop-up talk show, and the point of it is talking into this microphone. I've got my microphone, but that's just simply so that I can interrupt, interject, and encourage. My name's Mikey. This is Talkaoke. Let's go around the table. See who we've got. What's your name?
James Grogan.
Can I just call you James?
That's fine.
Yeah. Matt. Sam.
Come and have a seat.
Can I?
What's your name?
Stevie.
Stevie.
Rose. Andy.
And who have we got over here?
Yvonne.
Yvonne, welcome. And as I said, I'm Mikey. So the whole point of Talkaoke is kind of up to you to decide what you want to talk about. We don't have a subject yet. We were just talking about Latin poetry. Come and have a seat. Come and get involved in this. But we don't have to carry on that conversation. It's kind of up to you. It could be anything. Any suggestions?
Carry on to say was the relevance of translating first century Latin poetry is that Catullus, my guy, was writing at a time when everything was about to go completely to shit.
Right.
That it was about to become the Republic, which was hardly democratic and hardly just, was about to become an empire.
Right. Okay.
In his lifetime. He probably got killed by Julius Caesar for protesting.
Okay, this is what we were talking about a bit earlier on, before we officially started up. Come and have a seat, come and get involved in this. I just want to say that's Roz's kind of thing. It's kind of, we need to form a consensus here. We could carry on with this Latin poetry thing. And
the crucial thing is, we're probably all screwed.
Okay, so
creativity on the cusp of creativity on the cusp of claps.
Okay, so put into a contemporary context, are we all screwed? Do people want to run with this?
We are definitely screwed.
Yeah.
Main reason why we're screwed is climate change.
Okay.
If we don't, this country and most bigger Western countries, and China as well, don't decarbonise in like 12 years, we're going to have catastrophic climate change. We won't be dead, but
We're less screwed.
we're less screwed.
Okay, so maybe we can go around the table and work out. Oh, we've got a new face over here. We've got another, what's your name?
I feel like climate change is definitely one of the ways that we're definitely most screwed, but not the way that we'll be most we will be screwed more recent. It's going to happen sooner in smaller ways, I reckon. Than climate change is a long-term big screwing, whereas the financial and situation.
So we're going to be financially screwed before we're environmentally screwed. We're already financially.
We are already financially screwed.
Hang on a sec. What's your name?
Reese.
And we've got
Sam.
Okay, and I'm going to have to go around again, I think, because I wasn't properly paying attention. So we've got Reese, we've got Yvonne, we've got, what's it again?
Sam.
Sam, and Andy, and Roz, and
Stevie.
And
Sam as well.
Yeah.
Matt.
That was what's confusing me, Matt and
James,
that's right, of course. So, and Mikey, and we're talking about we're screwed, but how are we screwed? Are we environmentally screwed? Financially screwed? We're screwed in other ways.
Lots of ways at once,
Yeah.
There's lots of ways in which we're... I'm going to move it off from screwed to say fucked, because I think that's funnier. Growing inequality, climate change, financial, meltdown. There's lots of ways in which we're fucked.
Okay, I mean, it's quite a negative sort of way to kick this one off. But I mean, do people agree with it?
No, there's a freedom in noticing that, long term we're fucked. So in the short term we can be better to each other, right? And you can build things like this conference is about,
Okay. Are we totally fucked? That's what the consensus of the table. Come and join in. And if so, what are we going to do about it?
I think it's worth note that you can become unscrewed, but you can't become unfucked. Once you're fucked. Whereas if you're screwed, I feel like you can unscrew a situation. I feel like a situation that could be screwed. No, I like both terms. I'm just saying there's a finality to fucked. Once you're fucked, you can't be unfucked. But when you're screwed, I feel like you can be unscrewed. You know what I mean? And things could change, and we could pull back on certain screwedness.
Okay, so in some ways we're screwed, in some ways we're fucked. You can be unscrewed, but you can't be unfucked. We're learning all the time. The great thing about Talkaoke is you learn all the time. Are we screwed? Are we fucked? And is there anything we can do about it? That's the consensus of the people around the table. Come and join in.
I'm an optimist, and I haven't got any good reason to be, but I don't think we are completely.
Yeah.
I mean, the track we're going on, we are. I mean, it'd be a miracle if we don't die from nuclear war.
If you were searching
That's
around
very
clutching
fucking real.
for tiny little elements of optimism, what would they be?
Fuck me. Well, obviously, like, obviously Corbyn, right?
Yeah.
That's why we're all here, right? I just think, I might be wrong, but I just think more people are more aware than before.
So there's awareness. There's a kind of like.
But I'm totally prepared that people might be more aware before, but I think for some reason that you gotta have hope, right?
There's a consciousness. There's a hope. Hang on a sec. Let me bring in some people on this side of the table, and we've got a new face. What's your name?
Faduba.
Faduba.
Yeah.
So we've got Sam, we've got Andy, we've got Roz, we've got Matt. Stevie, that's right. And Matt and James and Reese and Yvonne and I'm Mikey. And at the moment we're talking about, are we screwed? And if so, how? Are we optimistic? Stevie is optimistic because of a growth of consciousness, awareness that we can. Yeah.
Also, I mean, it goes both ways. It depends how it's used. But now we've got the technology to allow us to live. All in abundance, but
so the technology.
But it's just getting the power. So I think.
So what about it?
If we don't, I know it sounds really bleak, but if we don't die, I think from nuclear war, I think that's the thing. Like, if they want some fucking thing, we'll be fine.
Okay. So as long as we don't die, we'll be fine, says Stevie. So the main thing is to try and avoid dying in the short term, and in the long term, things will be fine because we're kind of getting more aware, and we're starting to discuss the things. Come and join in. This is Talkaoke. We're talking about, are we screwed, and if so, can we be unscrewed?
It's being led by the younger generation there, isn't it? At least people like of a certain age are starting to get aware that we are screwed and starting to do something about it. So maybe that's the reason for optimism.
It's funny, earlier on, Sam, we were having a conversation between a bunch of pensioners and some young people. And the pensioners were kind of saying, hey, we invented socialism, we invented the NHS, we're the kind of vanguard. And then the young people were like, actually, we know what's going, we're a bit more woke. So, they didn't actually use that term. But anyway, so the question is, can we put our, Andy, actually you were saying we can put our faith in the young people and we just need to wait for them to take over, to inherit the earth, and we'll be fine. What do people think about that?
I think that is always going to run out. Maybe not now, because you've had a complete destruction of young people's asset classes, but people get up, people get rich, and they lose their radicalism.
Right.
You've got to have a broad base of support from maybe the youth, but also broader working class, movement to racial justice, sexual justice. You have to always...
Although that as soon as what's rich, like when you get rich you lose your radicalism, is that like a statement?
Because you got Tony Benn, who was great, right?
Yeah.
There were a ton of really nice rich people, but...
Okay. I mean, what do you think is the answer to make sure that your generation never gets rich, so you stay radical?
We won't get rich because we can't afford to buy a house.
So you think you'll ever get rich?
We'll never get rich.
So you're going to stay radical? Okay.
It's worthless as well. The money is worthless. So becoming rich back then and becoming rich now, and rich by the time any of us ever become what's considered rich today or back then, the money's going to be worth way less. So I think obviously the idea of being rich is that wealth is in a group, isn't it? So if we're all skint, if we're all together, then we're not skint, are we? Because we've got more money because we're all together. Old people and young people.
We've got a couple of new faces to the table. I'm going to prioritise those. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Jack.
Have you got a view on this?
Well, I was saying this to friends the other day. Mate, I think maybe this backs up the argument that I mean, look at Elon Musk, right? All of that wealth, all of that privilege. In the coming years, they're going to crack open the solar system in terms of resources, asteroid mining. All that privilege, all that power. He calls himself like an E&M Banks communist or anarchist. And what does he do? He spends all his day on Twitter calling cave rescuers paedophiles. I mean, that's Yeah.
Okay. So, what is there a point you're going to draw from that, Jack? And we got another new face over here. What's your name?
Jono.
Jono, welcome. And we've got spare seats, so come and join in. We're talking about, are we screwed? And are the younger generation, are they going to stay radical because they're never going to get rich? Are they going to get rich and stop being radical? So that's what we're talking about. You haven't even started. You haven't even. You're leaving before you've even begun.
It's funny and it's also like political and important. I'm impressed. I'm loving it.
Well,
I'm going to back
guys,
out.
give yourselves a round of applause. You're funny and political.
Just wanted to say that some of us are in a position to tell Elon Musk, we knew Ian Banks, and you, sir, are no Ian Banks.
Okay, so you don't think much of Elon Musk then?
Well, all that wealth, and what did he do? He put some Mustang sports car into orbit.
Okay, so I mean, I get the feeling that the consensus around the table is.
Just closing point. That I'm not even saying he's doing nothing, but he's not, structurally, politically. He doesn't have any political economics. His political economics is going on to Twitter. He has a lot of power, and he's created a lot of new technology and new horizons. But
yeah, okay. So, I mean, do we want to focus here on Elon Musk, who is obviously a rich person? Or do we want to focus on, there was a point, was it you that made the point about, or was it you, I can't remember, about that the idea of wealth will actually change if your generation don't have the wealth that other generations have, and it'll mean something different. It was you, wasn't it, Reese? Yeah. That's it, well, we've got, what's your name?
Hello, Lizzie.
Was it?
Lizzie.
Lizzie. At the moment, yeah, we're talking about, Reese, do get involved. Don't be turned away by that. I just noticed.
Working behind the bar.
Who is? Reese. Okay, but this is more important. We're kind of creating a blueprint for a future society. Okay, so we're talking. So, will the idea of wealth actually change? Will it mean something else? I mean, are we wrongly focusing on Elon Musk because he's conventionally wealthy, if not wealthy in terms of ideas? Or
I think Elon Musk is wealthy in a lot of ways, and I think if he wants to call someone a nonce on the internet, I reckon loads of people do that, and if he wasn't rich, you wouldn't be asked. So
okay, so a poor person could easily.
There's people calling people paedophiles on the internet all the time, and no one's bothered. And the only reason that people are bothered is because he's loaded, and with being loaded, which none of us really are, he's trying to find different ways to resource energy, and he might be going about it in a mental millionaire way, but I imagine we'd all be doing the same if we were all mental millionaires as well, with loads of money and super geniuses as well. So leave him to it. I can leave him to it. He might be a knobhead, but leave him to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I don't see how he's qualified as a super genius. I mean, that's a bit of an unsubstantiated statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can he substantiate that statement?
What I'm going to do is, what do you think makes a genius? I'm going to ask you the question.
Wealth as well.
Hang on a second.
Wealth certainly doesn't make a genius.
Yeah.
What makes a genius? Somebody who's got peculiar ways.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost, I think. They have to have wild hair or something.
Yeah. So
you've got to have wild hair.
Donald Trump, for example.
Of course. I mean, he is a genius. Who else could spend all his father's money?
Okay, so
Twice.
Okay, not only once, but it's easy to spend your father's money once, but to spend it twice is actually quite genius. So we're talking. There's a few subjects on the table. There is the younger generation. What will their wealth be? There's what is genius anyway? Is there some connection between genius and wealth? And I guess this is the original question we started off with. Thank you to Roz. Is are we all screwed? Jono.
Because I just went to a workshop where there were young union delegates who are between 20 and 25 who are fighting for better conditions, and they've already achieved some great things. I don't think we are screwed, because if they continue to do that, then we're not screwed.
Okay.
No, so we've got young people already joining unions because it's shit for millennials, let's face it. People can't get a job, they can't get a house. I presume it's the same here as it is in Australia. So, and so people are finally going, well, fuck, we've got to do something about it. So there's some inspiring stories out there that are good.
But I mean, okay, people get jobs, they get decent pay, but when it comes to having a house or, actually having any kind of wealth, people, I think the point made by several people was that it doesn't matter how good your job is, you just won't be wealthy, you won't have those things as a millennial now.
Define wealthy.
Define wealthy people. Yeah.
Define
I think the lad over there earlier on made an unintentional pun around being a mental millionaire.
Yeah.
Is that as in his kind of his mental capacity makes him a millionaire? Because and that reminded me about this kind of social capital program that China have just put into effect, which is the kind of like Black Mirror idea where you are monitored through your social media. Yeah, and everyone's rated, and like, so the kind of ideas that you have, or the kind of like loyalty that you have to your kind of like leader or governments actually increases your wealth. So in a sense, like, anyone can be wealthy just through their loyalty to an idea.
Okay,
Is that how?
sounds like a more sinister version of wealth than what we've got now. What was that, Stevie?
I know, it's just quite. Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. That's what they're doing in China. Yeah,
that's what's going on in China.
Yeah.
I think there's a temptation to believe we actually live in a meritocracy, but Elon Musk came over here with emeralds in his pocket, with money made from his father's business in South Africa, in apartheid. And he's not a genius. You can see that on Twitter.
Yeah.
He does not know about politics. He wrote a couple months ago, Marx was a capitalist because he wrote a book about it.
Right.
So he's not a genius. He had the money to go through ventures he wanted to do. He is not the chief scientist of any of his creations, and it's not for social good. Sorry, he gets government subsidies to put things that should be for the public good, public ownership, to private industry. So he wants to privatise Puerto Rico's energy grid, not for the good of Puerto Rico, but for his own profit. I don't think he's actually doing any good. Sorry.
Sam. I think as leftists we can get sort of held up on focusing on Musk. He is really annoying, but he is a symptom. Yeah, he's a symptom, not the cause.
Okay,
it's a system rather than individuals. Musk is a pain in the arse.
But I mean, what about? I mean, you know, Andy's mentioned this idea of like, let's reframe wealth, but maybe that could be even more sinister if wealth isn't just about money, but about how loyal you are to the government, or how, you know, socially acceptable you are. Is that a better definition of wealth? Have we got a better, Sam?
Personally, I don't think we should be holding wealth as being like the aspirational thing and holding our rich people up as onto a pedestal. Like, I don't think it's necessarily trying to like aspire to be like Elon Musk, for example. It should be about like building community and building like sort of stronger ties between people than that. I think that's the sort of project that the left needs to work on, rather than.
Okay, so we're focused on what? How do you describe it? How would you articulate this idea?
Well, I think that's sort of what socialism gets to, like social goods, having good public services, having cooperatives, for example. I think those are all things that make people's lives better than just like the consumerist culture that we've got at the moment.
Do you think the idea of monetary wealth will kind of become less relevant in the future?
For sure, like I think with like technology as we have it now, a lot of things are being sort of distributed for free. It's like a lot of the stuff that people buy at the moment aren't making them happy. I don't think.
Okay, so there has to be some kind of redefinition of values, one way or another. Got a new face? What's your name?
AJ. But yeah, it was like the financialization of the world in the late 70s and early 80s that made everything about money. People used to want to be, there was always wealthy people, but like you had enough money to like provide for your family, for your friends, to like go on a couple of holidays, to like have a decent life, but not like to buy fucking champagne every night and like, you know, go on 10 holidays and spend 6 months a year traveling the world and, I don't know, having a fancy car and like 10 televisions and all that kind of stuff. And I think actually what I see, I mean, I'm getting older now, but I can see lots of people, young and old, all going to like a nice nature place, which is where I spend my summers, and going, actually, wow, just being able to sit around and chat to people, just being able to like swim in the sea, in a clean sea, like just be able to like actually have enough to eat and like actually not have a shop next door that I have to go and buy something every 2 minutes, you know? And it's this like say like the consumerism. In the end, that's why people are so mentally ill right now. That's why people are hurting themselves. That's why like there's so much violence in the world, is because everyone thinks they can buy something and it will make them feel better, and actually it makes you feel worse in the end, because you've got all these things and you haven't got solid relationships with your neighbors, with your community. You know, you don't talk to anyone around you.
Yeah, okay.
When you're talking about redefining what the word wealth means and what wealth actually means, I think you make a great point there that like chasing the traditional idea of what wealth is will make you sick, and it's not a real type of wealth that's sustainable and good for anybody. Just having loads of money isn't the way, I don't think.
Let me get a final point from you, Sam, if you're off. Matt, sorry, Matt. Where's Sam?
Sam sat over there.
Oh yeah. What's happened to you, Sam? You're not. Anyway, Matt, let me get a final point from you.
This is great. No, this concept, Talkaoke is funny and really fun, but it's going around the whole table. Everyone is knowledgeable, and it's really cool that like young and old.
Yeah.
My brother here is like 22, just graduated from university, and you've got people who are now pensioners, and everyone's just passionate and wants to make the world a better place, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit sappy, but
yeah. Well, it's
exactly right.
kind of the point of the weekend, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see, because sometimes you can get in your head, you think, no one really cares. But no, it's nice.
Well, certainly the people around this table care. I think we can see that. But where are we going to take this conversation? Do we need to define this? Or do we need to sort of articulate this kind of value if it's not about wealth, if it's about nature and it's about our environment? Is there a way to sort of like make it more kind of easier to sort of talk about? Do we need to do that, or is it just kind of obvious? I don't know. I mean, Matt wants to start the revolution, but I mean, we need to kind of have some terms about how to do it, where we want to go with this. Have we got a new face? What's your name?
It's Paul.
Paul. Have you got any views on this? You just come in?
I just like to echo the words of Chris Hedges, the journalist. He said the rich think differently, are different from the rest of us. It's not just because they got more money. They fundamentally think different because they treat people like commodities.
Right. Okay. I mean, Paul, that's good, and I think we've already kind of gone heavy in on Elon Musk. But AJ wants to talk about the other side, like what about those people that don't want to treat each other like commodities, that want to escape that? Have we got a language to describe that, to bring more people into that kind of conversation and get away from the conversation about wealth?
It's like Bill and Ted said.
Yeah.
Be excellent to each other.
Okay. Be excellent. Okay, AJ?
I was like, well, we have to make a label, right? Because we all need labels. So we need another label to describe this thing. I mean, I don't think...
You don't think it needs labeling?
No. I think, like you said about cooperatives, I'm really into cooperative. It's like people just... every time people talk about the world, and I'm like... Do your thing, but do it in a cooperative, right? You've got support. There's not one person sitting in a chair somewhere making a lot of money off you. You don't have shareholders. Like, you have each other. And, like, you can make an amazing thing and keep the profit. The reason we have to pay so much is because people are sitting on their asses doing absolutely nothing, making money off of our bodies. It's like our bodies and our minds. And people understand that. It's just that they need to... I think the problem is, in all the media, you see all the negative things. They show the news... purposely makes us live in fear, right? Like makes us live in fear, in need, in desperation of the last thing that happened. And actually, if you go on a nice film site called, filmsforaction.org, you get lots of documentaries and little short films and long films about people who are struggling and changing things in their communities. And I think we all lose hope when we don't get those stories, because we don't get those stories.
So in a way, we kind of know already, but we're just being bombarded with the negativity. Yeah. So we can actually find these positive things, and that's all we need to do. What do people think, Sam?
Yeah, I think like it might be a bit starry-eyed, but I think a big problem with society now is that people like to tie down into their job. Like people are defined by what job they have, and if you sort of like separate that, maybe like a shorter working week or something, then people will have like more free time to do important things like care for their families or like volunteer. And they'll like give more thought to like problems that society faces. At the moment, people are just working like flat out, like just trying to put food on the table. So how are you meant to like, reach out to people when they're just so like stressed out?
Okay, so
Somebody said, what this world so full of care, we have no time to stand and stare.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's time, it's work. Roz, are you off?
I'm back later.
You're back, okay, because otherwise I need a final thought from you. Give us a final thought anyway. So we're talking about work, the pressure of work, the defining of ourselves by what we do. And we want to escape that and define ourselves by our relationships, I suppose. Come and join in, come and get involved in this. Define yourself by the relationship around this table.
I feel like, by most estimates, automation is coming, and it's coming fairly soon. So by 2050, about 1/3 of jobs in the UK will be automated, mostly service jobs, which are a large part of what the working class is. At the moment, it's not miners anymore. It's the middle-aged woman who works at a call centre or who works in Sainsbury's on the till. Their jobs will be gone. And what do you do when a third of the population are refused jobs, the means of survival? So they can't buy a house, they can't buy whatever. So what you were saying earlier, sorry, I don't want to go too long, about how do you define wealth. At the moment, our identity is linked a lot with what our work is. But when work is gone, I think, and when you get rid of capitalism, wealth should be defined by care. For each other, for art, for things that enrich us. Because everyone works and they go home in the evening and they read a book they love, or they watch a film they love, or listen to music. That's what brings you joy.
Okay. So we redefine wealth by this sense of joy. Will we be kind of overwork in 2050, as James says? Because
not fully real.
If the capitalists keep control, yeah.
You think if the capitalists keep,
I feel like I come from a creative industry though, and I feel like people are really driven by the art that they make, but they're also selling that.
Themselves by their kind of
they are. They love making what they do, but they're doing it for a visual effects company, so they're working 12, 14 hours a day because they love making art and they're getting paid to do that, and they just kind of get sucked into that, and they kind of can't, that's their creative outlet, but it's also what they're getting paid for.
Will those people want to be redefined by, by kind of relationships rather than because they seem to be people like that? And I'm an artist too, believe it or not. I define myself by what I do. What about us? Are we gonna be lost without an identity when we need to identify ourselves just by being nice to people instead of making art?
I might be wrong. I might be wrong. I think a lot of people in them industries are defined, especially in the lower ends, by precarity. So if you're a freelance person doing art, you'll have to finish your piece of art quickly because you need to get another commission because you got to pay your rent. So 1/3 of jobs by reports will be automated by 2050. We don't just leave it at that, we have to radically rechange the economy. So something like housing, I think, has to eventually just be given to you, an expectation, and so you don't get rid of the love for the job, you take away some of the precarity.
Okay, so it's not about the job as such, it's about you can spend all your time doing art. If you've got a house that you don't have to worry about, if you're not worrying about...
Yeah, I guess that's the only, not to be neggy, because this is all really positive, but just to have the space in your head to think about this is a luxury, and to have that disposable sort of time, and I feel like I do feel guilty when I'm not working, or feel like I should have a day off, and you think, no, but this is a good thing, and having those mental sort of tug of wars in your mind, and that's me as somebody that's sort of sat here as part of this conversation. So
okay, so we are kind of almost oppressed by this need to be working. We've got come and join in on this one. Yeah, we can listen there. It makes it's better. It's better. Come on. So are we oppressed by the idea that we have to keep working and working?
I think it's the fact that work just means paid employment at the moment. I think people like being busy, but people can define themselves through volunteering or something, or doing something that they actually enjoy that's productive. That's not necessarily paid employment, which is just for most people a shit job that they hate.
Steve, tiny random point. I've got a mate from Spain. It might not be for what he said to me. It might be not for everyone, but he said in Spain it's kind of rude to ask. Here we say, what do you do as a job, kind of thing. He said in Spain it's kind of rude to ask that. And I guess everyone here kind of defines it. I do this, blah blah blah. That's just a tiny little thing. It's quite a different thing culturally. Maybe it's just here we define ourselves by how.
So in Spain they're not obsessed by, and you can't even really ask what somebody does. It's not important for their identity. Okay. Are we going to be going in that direction? Will we be, or are we going more into the direction of I'm an analyst or whatever? I don't know. Will it be like that? I don't know. I mean,
of course, we define ourselves by what we do. Everybody defines themselves by what they do. But the idea that you define yourselves by your career, that's not inherently the same thing. Under capitalism, we're required to monetize what we do. If we have, you're talking about, basic services or things even like housing provided, you don't necessarily have to monetize what you do, but you can still define yourself by what you do.
So you think you're in this kind of future world, if it happens, where we don't worry about housing or basic requirements, we'll still be defining ourselves by what we do.
Yeah, of course.
But it'll be a more kind of essential.
Yeah, you have more control over it. Like, you know, you don't have to, because even like talking about working for a visual effects company, somebody might enjoy the type of art they're making working on whatever movie or what they might be working on, but they might not like that fucking movie. They might rather be making a different piece of visual art, which if they weren't required to be paid for it, then they wouldn't have to.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, if you want to know what people do if they don't have to work to survive, just look at like what really rich people do anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't just like lounge around and die. They just do what they want to do for fun. And honestly,
what kind of things they do? Have you got an example?
They just go like surfing in some weird fucking island somewhere.
Yeah. Have we got any really rich people here? Tell us what you do with all that spare time. Yeah.
I was a personal assistant for a multimillionaire for 2 years, and I can tell you, absolutely. I'll go grab one from him.
Yeah.
So I'm not personally very wealthy, but I witnessed a very wealthy lifestyle.
What do wealthy people do? Are they productive and are they creative?
They can be productive and creative, but not necessarily in a way that is always socially beneficial. Which, of course, that you could say that of anybody.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if we,
I watched somebody who ran a business come up with very creative ways to screw other people out of money. That is creativity. It's not necessarily socially beneficial.
I mean, there is a question because there's a few people around the table proposing this idea that we should have free housing and free food and all these things, and we'd be more creative. But these communists, but will we actually be more socially engaged, or will we just end up screwing everybody over because we can? That's the implication I'm telling. What's your name?
Nick.
That I'm drawing from Nick. We've got a few new faces around the table. I'll just explain, this is Talkaoke, it's a freeform talk show. At the moment we're kind of talking about, what are we talking about anyway?
So are we not just talking about a post-work society where universal basic income or universal basic services have kind of... So, I mean, could we get more into the kind of nitty-gritty on that? If you were living in Liverpool, I would love to hear some more about how people think that would actually work.
No, well, hang on a sec, because hang on, I want to ask you how you think it will work, because you seem interested. How is it going to work?
I'm very kind of like, I think it would be really specific in different cities or different places based around kind of like what common resource or common kind of goods there are in that place. So for instance, if you were in like a place like Pendle, which is kind of like got beautiful natural resources, perhaps you can look at sort of the kind of the wealth of environment that's there and the experiences that people would have. Liverpool, I don't know what it would be. Would it be sort of like the heritage of the place, or what would be the kind of like common good that is there that can be shared? It depends on sort of...
I mean, if we did an experiment and we gave the population of Liverpool a universal basic income, what would they do with that money? Let's have some suggestions on that one. Drugs, okay.
Good.
Yeah, okay.
There'd be a lot of pubs.
Yeah, okay.
And so people would have to work in those pubs or deliver that beer or create that beer. So there'd be a lot of people making beer.
Right.
There'd be a lot of people growing different kinds of cannabis.
Yeah.
And making better strengths of cannabis and getting rid of spice and all that shit.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's already going on a lot in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Lots of people are making beer and selling beer and drinking beer and growing weed and smoking weed. So I reckon if you gave everyone a load of money and said, "Yeah, here's a load of money. You don't have to go to work if you don't want to," it'd probably work much like this free-form conversation situation. People would do it because they want to do it. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
So
you get off and smoke weed or drink beer.
You think a lot of people...
And we're all here doing this, and none of us are being paid.
Yeah, so you think a lot of people would still go to work and do their things that they...
Well, I mean, yeah, because you'd be bored stiff, wouldn't you? And like you'd still want to do stuff, and if you want something and it's not there, you've got to go out and create it. I think Liverpool is the perfect city that I'm pretty sure that on an income like that, we would innovate and find a way to make good with the money. Okay. I think it'd be great for the global economy if you gave Scousers loads of free money.
That's what it really like. I mean, having that having that little bit of income basically means that you can do, basically means that you can innovate. And I think there's this kind of myth that this is kind of long-standing myth in our society that that we live in a meritocracy and that people are able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps or whatever, and work. Yeah, exactly. And that if you work really hard, then you'll get somewhere or whatever. And I think I think really most people kind of realise that that's really untrue for for most people, and I guess so basically I think it would free people up to actually do something purposeful instead of constantly toiling away all the time, which is what everybody, I think a lot of people in this country feel like that's what they do.
So people are just working. What's the point over here? What's your name?
Wafa. I completely agree with you, and I think also the thing that in this conversation often gets ignored is we try and look at the way that people behave now when they don't have work, and actually when the paradigm is completely changed, the way that we think and the way that we view our actions will also change. So people won't behave the way that they do when they get off working their shitty 19-hour shift at a job. It'll be completely different because people will think and grow up with a different way of thinking about work.
Can you paint a picture of just one aspect of that, just to give us a flavour?
So an artist that has a real passion for art, that in this world has had to give that up and work somewhere that they don't really want to work, and ends up being an angry husband and father because he hasn't achieved his dreams, will in that world be able to do that and will be a lovely person who creates loads of amazing shoes for all of us, and we'll be blessed with those shoes.
Okay, so we'll have beautiful shoes. There's a point of, what's your name?
Right, Richard.
Richard, what's the point?
So I read basically about when people got like their basic costs covered, so not like fully automated luxury communism, right? But they have their basic costs covered. They
so this is basic standard communism.
Yeah, just basic, just your food, your rent, and all that. Basically, no one works like full time. Basically, everyone has like. This is like actual like science research. Basically, everyone does like part-time jobs. And like unions actually get stronger because people don't. No one wants to do a minimum wage job if you don't have to do a minimum wage job to survive. You just so jobs like pay more. So it's basically like a trade unionist wet dream.
Okay. Okay, we're talking about a trade unionist. Any trade unionists here? Can you verify this? Is that what your wet dream is? That's what Richard says. It's just this basic income, bog standard communist type of basic income, not luxury communism. There's a point over here from Paul.
I think social hierarchies would be in a different way to economic. So people who are creative, artistic, or in science, in academia,
they would become the
that is what's going to be determined. That's what's going to determine the social hierarchy.
Is that not the case now?
No, it's economically determined. It's how much money you got. Irrelevant, and most people who are rich are basically psychopaths or sociopaths.
You can go to the Royal College of Art. If you're an artist and you can go to the Royal College of Art and meet the right people, doesn't matter if you draw like shit.
Okay. All right. So we're moving into a kind of art discussion now. I mean, what? Okay, but I mean, what would it be like if everyone was an artist? Would we still be all trying to get into the Royal College of Art? And we were all. Sam.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's still like a good thing for there to be social hierarchies according to whether people are good at art or not.
Yeah.
I just think get rid of hierarchy.
Is it possible to get rid of hierarchy? Is it part? I'm just going to throw this in, and it's not normally my want to do this, but there's a suggestion that maybe there's always going to be a kind of a pecking order, a social hierarchy. We're always going to value one person more than another. Do you don't agree with that? No.
You always value your mother. You always value perhaps your father, depends. So you always value somebody because of what they have provided you with, perhaps, or not even financially, but what they've passed on to you, your education, the fact that they've brought you up to be a nice person. I mean, what a hell of an achievement that is, isn't it? So I think if we free everybody up to do what they want to do, we'll discover that 98% of people are actually really nice.
Right.
And they want to do nice things. And, so I think that giving everybody a chance to achieve whatever their dream is, if a person is too poor to afford a piano, he'll never find out that he's actually Mozart.
Okay.
Sorry, you're talking about hierarchy. I think hierarchy is kind of linked to limited resources, and the whole idea of machines doing our work for us is that time is not such a limited resource. We don't need to build these hierarchies as much anymore because it's going to be more for everyone.
So once we've got our basic, I'm just going to sum up here, Nish, sorry. Once we've got our basic needs sorted out, we won't have social hierarchies, says a lot of people around the table. Does everyone agree with that? Do they agree? Is it this need to work, to actually have to contribute to the economy, is that what's creating this need for the hierarchy?
I mean, even if you remove economic hierarchy, there'd still be like political and social hierarchy. So you'd need to really change the political dynamic as well if you were going to make a sort of horizontal hierarchy.
Yeah.
Instead of a vertical
what would that
one.
mean, changing the political dynamic?
I mean, it'd probably be sort of more direct democracy rather than representative democracy, sort of being able to remove politicians with like a ballot when it's not an election, that sort of thing. Sort of more autonomous, less centralised control, that sort of that would probably remove a lot of hierarchy, that sort of thing. Devolution.
Well, I mean, okay, so that will that remove also the social hierarchy if we have a decentralised political world? Was that something
I think that would help a lot. But when you think about particularly like women in society, that the hierarchy was created on purpose to oppress women, right? To have these people, these are half the population that cook and clean and bear children and have to stay at home. So you keep them out of the political life, you keep them out of the productive life, and like once you get educated, that's why I think education for everyone is so important, to basically have that time to open your mind, to look at the social structures that exist around you. I mean, even your sexual identity. I mean, it's sex is or these gender constructs are social constructs. Like, who cares if you have short hair, long hair, you wear a dress, you wear a skirt, you don't wear anything. Like, you have a deep voice, you have a light voice, you're short, you're tall, whatever. These are all social constructs to like put people in boxes and divide people. Like when you just live and see other human beings as other human beings who experience the same emotions as you, then you don't need all these social constructs. You don't care who's like doing this, and everyone gets treated the same. And I think once you get your mind open to the fact that we are all just people, just with the same needs of love and attention and need and not fear and all this kind of stuff, then all those relationships change. I think when you subscribe to all those social constructs and you live with inside them and you think, I have to do this and I have to do this because someone thinks this and someone thinks this and I have to keep my body like this and my hair like this and my face like this because someone is judging me on that. When you get rid of all that and like we're all equal, which I know is fancy and utopian.
Yeah, but that's where you're wanting to go with this.
Because it doesn't. It's irrelevant. It's really irrelevant.
I mean, do you see? Do you see these social constructs and this kind of box making? Is that also related to a political dynamic and an economic dynamic? You're not.
Yeah. Like I was going to say, like I think if we're going to talk about education as a tool for like examining our own society and also education as a tool for promoting education as a way of freeing people and demolishing social hierarchies and so on, then I think we should, as well as talking practically about abolishing tuition fees and having free education, we should also be talking about getting rid of basically abolishing private schools.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so some points. I mean, is education the answer? We're talking now about getting rid of the social constructs which form this hierarchy that Paul mentioned originally. I mean, how do people feel about this? Is it possible to dismantle some of these hierarchical structures? Come and join in. You're very welcome. We've got Sam, we've got Andy, we've got Nisley, Paul, Wafa, Stevie, Dave. We didn't get your name. And Nick and James and Richard. And we didn't get your name either.
Nicole.
And
Ben.
And what's your name?
Paddy.
Paddy, we're talking about this idea of like a kind of, not a fully automated luxury communism, but a bog standard communism. And would that actually do all these things that people hope for? Dismantle social hierarchy? What's that going to look like? We had a very passionate speech from AJ, and I want a final thought from you before you go, and one from you. But that's what we're talking about at the moment. Is it possible to get rid of these hierarchies? Most people around the table say yes. James, final thought.
I think it's in a book that I assume a fair few of you have read, Post-Capitalism by Paul Mason. He ends it basically talking about the emancipation in nature of ending hierarchies, not for will be for the lower classes, but for rich people too, because they're alienated from society, they're alienated from other people, they live in a different plane. And he said basically post-capitalism will set you free. A great example is Kanye West. He does not relate to society, or like wealth and power messes people up, and getting rid of hierarchy is emancipation for them too.
Kanye West is in an alienated state of mind. He's in trouble.
He's got too much money that he knows what to do with. He's got such a following that his ego is, whether right or wrong, understandable. No, it's wrong. No, it's wrong, and he says stupid things. But it must be really confusing to go from a kid who does a bit of producing, and then everyone looks up to you, and people assume you know what about anything really. So he has like a house to say.
Who would want to be Kanye West? I don't know. Okay, final thought. Sorry to cut you short there, James.
I think there's not enough debate going on these days. I think like people have a right or wrong opinion. I've been reading a lot about this and thinking a lot about it. That like people don't do this enough anymore. We don't debate and say, you think something different to me, but all right, you think something different. Let me think about it. People go, you're right, you're wrong. Like fuck you, and they write on the internet and like they've never met you before. And I think this is really good to like get lots of people talking in different ways and about different things, and and make sure everyone has space to talk. It's great.
Okay, so listen to what people you disagree with and have a chat with them.
Never do that.
What's that? Do you think no? Okay. I disagree with you about that. Okay, which is actually not my role as a host in the middle. We've got some spare seats, so we're talking about now what a terrible life Kanye West has, because he's rich but he's alienated, and if only we could break down the hierarchies, people like Kanye would be free.
Maybe that's the reason.
I think that we always judge people, every one of us, you know, like as soon as Paddy came along, you think Irish. As soon as you see somebody come along who's transgender, you think, oh, transgender. You immediately label them, judge them, and you're creating your own hierarchies all the time. And even with our children as babies, pure babies, we're defining them by their gender first of all. Then we're defining them by how pretty they are or not pretty. Then we're defining them by whether they're able or disabled. Then we're defining them by whether they're clever at school or not clever at school, whether they're good at art or whether they're good at music, or you know, but what capabilities they have or abilities they have. Instead of it's in our nature, it seems, to create our own hierarchical structures.
So you're saying that's in our nature, and it's not down to capitalism or the oppressive world that we live in.
I think I agree with you in the sense that it's natural for humans to see patterns, but those patterns don't necessarily have to relate to hierarchy. It is possible to see that these two people are different without saying that this one's better and that one's better. So patterns are definitely natural and will always happen, but the hierarchy isn't a quality of that inherently, I don't think.
Okay, is it an inherent quality of human beings? Wafa says no. Is it Nijli? Lizzie, sorry. Lizzie says maybe. What you want?
I think I would add some nuance to hierarchy and use the word status.
Right.
So I think humans are innately status-seeking creatures. And if you could shift what they're seeking status about, that could be really powerful. For example, I believe in South Korea there's an award for who's given the most tax. And so they can like boast, I've paid the most tax. So do
you think that's how we should define status?
Well, or if we, you know, if it's the good works you do, if it's how much you help the world, if that's a new kind of status, it's a hierarchy, but it's a good thing.
Okay, so should we be trying to go with the flow, go with human nature. What's your name?
David.
As David sees it, and try and get the right status going on.
I mean, it's all learnt behaviour as far as I'm concerned, so we need to change what we say to a baby, because when they take male and females, they do recognise the male and female. In fact, babies recognise it, but we teach them the way we treat babies, so we need to change it from that level upwards from when they're born.
Okay, all right, yeah. Paul?
I was going to say the artificial divisions. I was thinking about in Rwanda. Tutsis and Hutus were an artificial creation of the Belgian government.
Right.
And they just decided some looked slightly more European than the others, and that was a completely artificial division, and that led to civil war.
Okay, so you're saying that was like a fictional racial division?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, but what relevance has that got to the conversation?
I'm just saying about
so do you think that all of the divisions that we're making are the same fictional?
A lot of them are.
Okay. Is it a? I'm going to go to Paddy first. So I'm looking at you, Richard. Is it a natural state of affairs that humans will be status-driven animals? Are we going to create hierarchies? Does that mean we have to stick with them? Are some of these things fictional? Paddy, you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, yeah, I don't think you can just assume that it's innate in humans to seek that, like, separate the status, like a long-standing philosophical debate of people. Like, some people think that innately humans left to themselves are communal and want to, like, be civil and friendly, some people, and that it's the divisions are imposed by society. Some people would take the opposite view, that by nature we're at war and it's society that civilises us. I don't think you can assume one. There's
you're
a long-standing.
Kind of like between the two, you say. You're kind of.
I'm not sure. I have convincing art. You go into like Hobbes and Rousseau and Locke. I'm convinced by separate narratives depending on which I read last.
Okay. So whoever I'm the same. You know, I'm stuck here in the middle. It's hard to form an opinion when people have got different views. You just get bombarded with different ideas. I'm going to go to Richard and I'll come to you, Sam.
Well, I mean, the thing is that basically humans are tribal animals, because that's how we have evolved, basically. And so humans, but you basically care for your own tribe a lot, and you hate the other tribes, and the trick is basically creating a social environment in which people consider all of the human race to be in their own tribe. That's basically what solidarity is.
Right.
It's care for your own. It's care for everyone else. So the trick is basically using the way that people have evolved into creating a better society.
Okay, so we don't need to kind of stick with what we've evolved with. We can evolve further, and we can be just one single tribe. Do people kind of agree with that? You're at the point.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. But like, I was reading George Monbiot, and apparently humans are like the most altruistic animal, apart from mole rats or something. And so like. Studies have been done that we're actually just very nice. I think a lot of the reasons why we're constantly, like, attacking the other is just we're fed this narrative by the media and like constantly in fear. So
you think we're naturally nice?
I don't, but apparently we are. Like the psychological studies.
You don't think we are?
Well, I don't like to think we are. I'm quite pessimistic. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, let's put this out there, and this is to the standing people. Are we naturally nice? Are we? You know, is all of this status, this hierarchy imprinted into our genes? Can we escape that? Do we want to escape that? These are some of the questions going around the table. We've got a new face over here. You've not said anything yet. What's your name?
Jamil.
Have you got anything to say at this point? Or?
Yeah. I had been thinking just earlier that we're able to maybe transcend our primal natures and trying to create a better society. But you're right, there is something innate in kindness. It is part of our innate personalities, our innate humanity. It's just one part that's perhaps warring with all kind of other parts, and the transcension to be better people is trying to look above that. And
so in a way, we've got kindness, but we've also got this kind of competition as well. We've got this built-in conflict within us. Where are we going with this conversation? I don't know. So we're talking about. It started off with this question about do we have to have a hierarchy? Do we have to have status? Some people said yes. Some people said no. And now we're sort of talking about, is there such a thing as what is natural in human beings? Is it all of these things natural, the competitive nature and the kind bit? That's where we are right now. We've got a new face. What's your name?
Isabel. But why does it matter if it's natural? Is there an innate value to natural, or is natural somehow imply unsurmountable? Like, because we beat natural stuff all the day. Cancer is natural, but we can defeat cancer. So if competition is not natural, if competition is natural, I mean, like, it's a valuable piece of information to have, but we can still destroy competition somehow through
so we can actually
how we raise our children.
As a species, we can be what we want to be if we've got enough will to do it.
Presuming that we assume that natural has no moral value.
Okay.
It's just a normative thing.
Okay. Well put.
We behave differently under different modes of production. This is easily identifiable. People behave differently under feudalism than they do under capitalism. If we were under a feudalist system, none of us would be here right now. Right? Like, we wouldn't have the choice of being. Well, we wouldn't. we would be tied to the land that we were working. Yeah, but what? Right? So we would. I would. I'm not. No, I left. I work in London. I left London. I'm not tied to that land. I don't serve a landlord in that land. Not in that regard.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what would this conversation look like as a feudal Talkaoke? That's no one's ever asked that before in 21 years. What would a feudal version of Talkaoke be like?
We'd all be a lot more drunk. We'd also have more free time because the church would mandate a certain number of holidays, and they can only make us work for a certain amount of time, unless it's under bastardized feudalism, in which case we'd all be fucked and probably starving to death.
Okay.
But but there'd definitely be like a lot less mobility just because of infrastructure improvements. But I think it's like a capitalist narrative to like make feudalism look absolutely awful all of the time for the peasants in order to justify how awful it is for the working class, because they had holidays. They did less work than we do. They had no political freedoms, but at the same time, like, this capitalist state where we're all worked to death, this isn't normal. It hasn't always been like this. Some of us might have been better off as peasants.
Is there such a thing as normal? Who defines normal? Is it the same as natural? So we're talking about feudal. The feudal Talkaoke would be more drunk and more time consuming, but less dynamic perhaps. Paddy.
So, I'm going to go back to Rousseau.
Yeah.
So the difference is, Rousseau would say that, like, before the sort of society that we have, we still had fights, like, because we had to survive. We still, like, fought each other. We were in competition.
Yeah.
But when someone fought us, we didn't see it as injury. We weren't injured by it. We weren't, like, offended by it. Do you know what I mean? So the competition is maybe natural, but the idea that we get offended by it and we take umbrage with it is that is a modern.
So you're saying in a feudal time, if someone punched you in the face, you you
just sort of see it as part of the world that you live in.
Okay.
And then you have him skinned.
Okay. I want to go back to. Let me just go back to Richard, because you brought in the idea of the bog standard communism earlier on. Because we talked about the feudal and the capitalist Talkaoke, but what about if we go further? Would our values change? And it seems like we'd have to trade something good for something bad in this future communist world.
I mean, people always want something better. I mean, basically, the entire sort of ideology origin of socialism and communism is basically thinking, well, the French Revolution's promised like equality, fraternity, brotherhood, all that. But it didn't really happen, and so the idea is that, well, maybe actually we could have an idea that would make that happen. And I think if we managed to get, a socialist state and it still hadn't happened, we'd probably think, well, we probably got to do something else as well, wouldn't we?
Okay, so in a way, we're this socialism is bound to lead to some disappointment, but that will lead to some more thinking and some new ideas. Liz, final thought before you go.
I think that everybody has a talent or a skill inbred in them, inside their very nature, and everybody deserves to reach their full potential.
Okay.
With the capitalism thing, it's not like our innate skills are actually being taken advantage of under this system. Like, this has got to be wildly inefficient for like human advancements. Like capitalists say, like competition makes things better. Well, I'm like, dude, half of the smartest people I know can't afford to go to college and can't get jobs and can't get educations, and I'm never going to be able to use what I'm good at. So it's like, it's stupid. Destroy capitalism.
And you brought yourself up as an example. What are you good at?
I'm good at history and I'm good at obsessing over weird things.
Okay, but it seems like you're doing quite well at that right now.
Yeah, but I'm in uni, man. I'm gonna be homeless.
Okay. So you can't do that as a career, and that's a perfectly good career, obsessing over weird things. Okay, so where are we going to go with this? Do we want to talk about this kind of, how our values are going to change? Is the kind of bog standard communism that Rich is proposing going to be inherently disappointing as well, but in that sense actually stimulating us to come up with something even better? These are some of the subjects on the table. This is Talkaoke. It's kind of up to you where you want to take this conversation. It's not up to me. My job is simply just to
just ask what everybody's good at.
Okay, yeah. But I'm going to start with you.
Can I be last? Drinking.
Okay. So we heard Isabel's gone now to obsess over some history, but let's find out what people are good at around the table. And do you feel your talents are really being used in this society that we're in now? So, Sam, I'm going to come to you.
Guys,
what are you good at?
I got a big mouth.
Yes.
I'm good at
talking.
I can fit my fist in my mouth. That's about it.
So you're good at that?
Good at that, very good at that.
Potential being used to.
I've reached my potential.
Okay, Paddy, what are you good at?
Jumping.
Okay.
I've never really. I was county high jump champion when I was 16. I've never progressed since then.
Okay. What about your love of philosophy and people like Rousseau and Hobbes? Is that not more important than jumping?
It is, but there's loads of people that are better than me at that.
Right, okay.
But I think I'm in like the top percentile of jumping.
Okay. But when you asked Yvonne what are people good at, is it what they're the top percentile at, or is it more about what their talents they want to explore?
Isabel told us one thing. She said two things, didn't she?
Yeah, history and obsessing over
So one thing that is something that she's passionate about, and then another thing that's sort of maybe holding her back.
Okay. So it's more about what you're passionate about. It's not what you're good at. So I think that the fist in the mouth and the jumping is fine. But we want to know more what you're actually passionate about. So
philosophy then.
Okay. And we didn't get your name. What's your name?
Kendrick.
What are you passionate about? What would you like to be kind of like?
Politics.
Yeah. And is your talent being used?
Sort of.
It is.
Standing as a councillor next year.
Okay, so you're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you passionate about?
I made a very nice chana masala the other day, which I think I would like to do more of.
Okay. And is your talent being used to its fullest extent?
Not tonight, but kind of like I do. I try and find opportunities to cook for large amounts of people, but then when you do that one or two times, it starts to become really boring.
Right. Okay.
So it's difficult to kind of balance what your inherent skills are.
Interesting. It's an interesting point. We may come to that later on. Paul, what are you passionate about, and do you do the thing that you're passionate about?
It's a bit of an embarrassment. Actually, I quite like my job.
Yeah. What is your job?
Systems design, basically.
Okay. And what does that mean? Computers or something?
Yes, the sort of hardware and software systems design.
And do you are you being, is your talent being used? It sounds
yes, unfortunately, I'd say it's embarrassing.
Well, is that unfortunate? Why is that unfortunate? That's
it's embarrassing. Is it not unfortunate?
Because right now we're slagging off the capitalist system, but it sounds like people's talents are, be it Paul's chana masala. Kendrick's politics, or your philosophy, or your systems design, that talents are being used by the capitalist system. Stevie, I'm going to come to you in a second.
I play guitar.
and I teach it.
You do what?
Play guitar. And yeah, I love it. And
do you get to use your talents?
I teach it.
Yeah.
Play in bands. So kind of, I'd like to play in bands more.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'd like to gig full time, but I teach, which is okay.
Okay.
My talent is noticing that there's only 3 women sat at this table, and there should be more. There should be at least half of this table should be women, and maybe you should be a woman actually. And
well, I mean, I don't have to do this. Someone else can do this job.
So when I get up now, I hope another woman will come and sit here, and a few more women will.
Maybe you need to. We didn't get what's your name? We didn't get your name.
Fran.
We did. Maybe Fran. I think you need to stay there to represent talent. We didn't get your name either.
John.
What's your kind of passion or your talent?
Kind of saying nothing and looking at people.
Okay. Is that being used to its fullest extent?
Right now it is, yeah.
Okay. It seems like most people's talent and passion is being used.
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't have a good answer for this.
Okay, well, mate, this is interesting. Nick needs to find out what his talent is. Yeah, we need to help Nick.
Facilitate that. Everybody tell me what I'm passionate about right now.
we need to find a passion for Nick. Okay. Okay.
Couple of things. I seem to be good at coming up with cheeky one-liners, you know, an answer to something that's catchy, kind of like the tiebreaker in a. Don't ask me to do one now. It's random, but I seem to be good at it. Yes, and the other thing is I like getting excited about things, all kinds of things, but I like then sharing the excitement, making it viral, and feeding back on other people's.
I mean, my passion is politics, and I feel like I am fulfilling that by just sitting in a political discussion and just talking shit, really.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the interesting thing, I haven't done Nicole and what's your name again? Sorry, Ben. But it seems like most people are actually exploring, and apart from Nick that doesn't know what his passion is yet, we can help him. People, by and large, we had the guy Sam, who's left now, to practice putting his hand in his mouth. But most people are kind of exploring and doing their passion in this capitalist world that we hate so much, but they seem to be doing the things that they want to do. Okay. Nicole?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way that you do. That I feel weird to say that my passion is my job, because I kind of hate that. But I'm really good at spreadsheets. But I'm not passionate about spreadsheets. I'm just really good at them. I do. I excel at Excel. And Google Docs and any other way. Throw it at me. But I sometimes feel bad because I'm not really passionate about anything, because I work a lot. Spreadsheets. But I'm really good at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
AJ's coming.
I'm not really at the table because I don't have a seat, but I want to say I think there's this thing that there are some people who do really have a driving force in their life, and I think a lot of other people think I don't feel that way about something. Oh shit, do you want me to take that? Because that's exhausting, isn't it? But they feel really weird that they don't have a big passion, and I think actually the problem is capitalism doesn't leave us the space to have passions. You don't get to, or this need for money all the time because everything is monetized. It doesn't leave you the space to go and experience or be in places where you're like, oh my god, that's amazing, I love that, that's crazy. So I do have some passions, but not something that drives my life, except community building, solidarity, community co-ops, community co-ops.
Okay. Ben.
Amazing.
Thank you, AJ. Ben.
I do. I don't know. I do a bit of social activism, and I live in a housing co-op, but mainly I'm a painter. So I do art. I'm an artist. But I teach most of the time to make money, and I also do some menial jobs to make money and odd jobs and things like that.
So your talent's not being fully expressed.
So no. I'd say no.
Okay. So basically, this is all down to you. We've been going, and we've got a new face at the table actually. What's your name?
LB.
What was it?
LB.
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 ELBE.
Okay. And we're basically talking about what people's talents are, and are they being fully expressed in this capitalist society? And it seems like...
And their passions.
Yeah, that's more their passions than the talents, in fact. It seems like, actually, bizarrely, most people's passions are being fully expressed. And that's what we're finding. Some people, like Nick, don't have a passion.
Destroyed my passion.
Yeah?
Well, because I'm a student, so I I'm passionate about what I study, but or I was, and then I ended up having a monetary value placed on it, and expectations and work and external reasons to do things, and that's kind of destroyed my affection for my subject. And I feel like
history.
Yeah. So I don't like Chinese history anymore because I had to do a course that was very difficult and I was stressed the entire time, and now I have negative associations with it.
Okay.
Because I was worried I was going to drop out and lose all of that money. So I feel like if we lived in a society that didn't have monetary, I feel like if I had a job where I was paid to do something, even if I loved it, if it was a mildly stressful job, which most jobs are stressful for me because I have anxiety disorder and autism and shit.
Yeah.
So it would completely destroy my affection for the subject.
Okay, so does getting paid for stuff actually destroy your passion for that? What's that?
I love getting paid for what I love.
So you're a guitarist and you
Yeah,
love...
sometimes I kind of have joking,
You
but
love
I think
getting paid to play the guitar?
Yeah.
It doesn't destroy your passion for the guitar?
It depends. I mean, teaching's different, but if I was getting paid just to play guitar all day, that'd be great.
Okay. So some people say no. LB.
Well, I think that we do have a lot more opportunity to express our passions in so many ways here, but we're at the lovely cushy end of capitalism, to be honest. There are people who live at the sharpest end of capitalism that cannot get off the rubbish dumps, that are trying to breaking their backs to feed their family in the most disgusting, appalling conditions, that have no way of expressing their passions whatsoever. Capitalism does waste human potential. I mean, myself, obviously, I can't afford to do a lot of the things I love, but it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing compared to what a lot of people go through.
What do you love doing?
I love flying trapeze, and I'm working on macro-cooperative economic models.
Okay, so I like a lot of people here, but there's a point. We're the lucky ones, so maybe we can explore our passions, and but most people that are subject to capitalism can't do that.
I think capitalism bastardizes people's passions. So someone will go into teaching, being really passionate, but the reality of how that is under capitalism, they become disillusioned because it's just it's not based on what they think it should be. It's based on what capitalism thinks it should be.
Okay. And how does that work? That's a question for everybody. But Nick, you had a point, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Well, I just wanted to piggyback off of our friend in the purple coat. I can't remember your name. I apologize. It's pink. This is weird lighting. It's wonderful lighting. I'm sorry. But I wanted to piggyback off of that because, my passion actually would have been filmmaking and cinema. And then I worked in the film industry for years and was ground down pretty intensely. I've left the film industry and I would never in a million years ever go back to it, but that's what I was passionate about.
Right.
But after working 80 hours a week, working weekends, getting nosebleeds every time my phone rang, and falling into a suicidal depression, I'm not super into it at this point anymore. Right. Hence why I don't know what my passion is any longer, because that was taken away from me.
Okay, so we're starting to get a little bit deeper here. Capitalism kills your passion because it kind of grinds it to, I guess, takes it too far. I'll come to you in a second.
I think it's quite interesting, but surely capitalism wants you to embrace and realise your passion, because then they can make as much money out of that as possible. So capitalism inherently doesn't want to negate your passion, because then it can monetize it.
Okay, so it's not about, capitalism doesn't want to destroy your passion, it wants to actually kind of farm it, so to speak. Let me just go to...
Capitalism isn't conscious, though. How is it going to accurately... I mean, if it was run by some kind of superhuman AI that could manage everything, maybe it would do that, but nobody gets the resources to get what they want or the right motivations under this current system.
Right.
So it's kind of like companies don't want to do anything. They just want profits, and they want the simplest way to that. So like Walmart doesn't let people unionize, even though letting them unionize would make them more money because they can't. Capitalism just goes for immediate profits.
Okay, so it's kind of blind to its own success.
If you want something like that will maximize human potential and plan, you want socialism, because socialism restricts capitalism's immediate greed instinct. Okay. Through government restrictions and forces them to do the fucking smart thing, which is not work people to death.
Okay, so capitalism isn't clever enough to maximise its own profits. There's a new face, what's your name?
Hello, my name's Hannah.
Hannah, what's your point?
Well, I am very, very, very for socialism, obviously, but is there some kind of something in between? The big question is, why does capitalism not capitalise on people's passions? Yeah. Wouldn't it be sensible to work out what everybody's skill and passion is, and then support people to use that? That can still make profit, that can still work towards a cooperative, that can still work towards financial gain. Yeah. Why have we evolved where that isn't valued? I don't really understand that.
Okay, so, I mean, in a way it's a sort of the same point really as Isabel's, but from a different perspective. I mean, surely, if there is more value to be made, what's your name again, sorry?
John.
As John was saying, there is more money to be made if you capitalise on people's passions. So why hasn't someone come up with a kind of super capitalism that actually does that and that actually make more money for the man?
But then I don't know, like everybody's talking about like in this very kind of utopian visionary way about what the world could be like if capitalism doesn't exist. But I like what the guitarist said, which is that basically I'm not going to lie, but I like money at the same time, and I think it reminds me of Bertolt Brecht, who was like an arch communist, but he was also like a total pragmatist at the same time. Yeah. And I think as people who are trying to achieve a specific political aim, we need to be really pragmatic and say, look, actually, we need to get as much money as we can in order to win an election, because at the moment it's not a level playing field, and we need to make it level. Okay.
I've got a couple of points over here. I'm going to come to you first.
The problem with capitalism is that the whole theory of economics is completely made up.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
And if you've heard of the donut theory of economics.
The donut theory?
It's just like what you get now is like rich get richer, poor get poorer. With the donut theorem of economics, I mean, we've got to think about the world's poor.
Yeah.
And the resources of the earth.
Yeah.
Now, if you think of a donut, if you start to think about the world's poor and the resources of the earth, when you get to the edge of the donut, you start to put money and people, feed the poor people, and stop exploiting the earth. And so it turns in on itself.
Right.
And you don't do that old boys theory. This is happening. The donut theory of economics wasn't made up by me 5 minutes ago.
No, I mean,
it is a movement.
I'm just trying to get my head around the donut thing.
And it works. You look that up. Donut economics.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just responding to capitalism and passion and value and why not more?
Yeah.
Because that would mean that we'd be treated as individuals. We're not treated as individuals in capitalism. We're treated as people with no minds. It needs masses of people to operate machinery, or well, it did do.
Yeah.
So that's why they're not asked about our passions, because we don't exist as humans.
Okay, so it's a kind of dehumanisation. Okay, where do we want to go with this? Do we want to talk about this donut? Does anyone else know about the donut theory? Are people familiar with this? But anyway, let me just come to Richard.
I was just going to say, you say like the whole like utopian thing with all the automated jobs is like a utopia.
That was Ben that said that.
Yeah. Well, you're sort of right, because climate change is going to basically fuck over everything anyway. And mostly for the people who didn't actually cause it. So there's going to be a lot of poor people who can't live where they lived before. There's going to be a massive refugee crisis. Think of the European one we saw a couple of years ago. It's going to be tenfold that. It's going to fuel the rise of fascism. it's not really optimistic, but it's quite bleak outlook. But climate change and the rise of fascism, they're quite closely linked, and you will see that happening.
Okay, so we were talking about just, like following our passions and stuff like that. Now, Rich has brought in the spectre of fascism and climate change, environmental disaster and all of that. I'm going to come to you in a second, Ben. We've got a new face over here. Have you got some? Ruth?
Yeah, I'm
just
observing. No, I'm just observing.
Okay, so this is Talkaoke, it's a pop-up talk show. We're kind of at the moment talking about why doesn't capitalism actually, it could make more money by, stay there, stay involved. It can make more money by actually exploiting our passions, but it doesn't. Is it because it dehumanises us? Are we kind of missing the elephant in the room, that it's an unsustainable system that's going to lead to environmental collapse and the rise of fascism? That's what we're talking about now. It's up to you to take it in whatever direction you want to take this. Where are we going to go from here?
I'm interested in this idea of the cult of the individual, because the lady over there said that actually we're not treated as individuals in a capitalist structure. But what's interesting is that we are sold individualism, and we are led to believe that right now we are more individual than we've ever been. And I want to talk about something about the facade of that. We actually want, if we buy into it, we all buy into it. If we buy into it, actually that keeps the structure that we have that doesn't work in place. So I don't have an exact point to make, but I kind of want to open up that.
In a way, to be more individual, we've got to be less individual.
We have to be more collective. So this cult of individualism is actually very damaging. It feels empowering, but it's actually very damaging to society.
Okay.
Can I say something? 'Cause I just want to be the asshole philosopher here. But what is individuality?
Okay, is it this jacket? Okay, so I mean, there's a side that you like about being. I'm going to come back to you. What's your name?
Janet.
Janet, hold the mic as well, because it's quite hard.
Sorry.
I mean, is it Hannah? Do you agree with what Hannah says, that there's an element of like individuality that's sold to us that's different from the individuality?
I know, because my boyfriend's a lot more knowledgeable than me on political theory and stuff. So individual stuff is like bad and kind of generally, but just what you were saying about people's passions and stuff. I think we're required to fit in order for the system to function. So but there is this problem, isn't it, that kind of individuality is kind of like Thatcherist or something, and
but is there another side to it?
There's nuances in there that I can't explain.
Okay, well, I mean, the great thing about Talkaoke is that we can all get into this together and work this out. Even you two can come and sit down. You've got free space now. What is the nature of the individual? Is there something valuable about the individual that we need to preserve? And it's something different from this kind of consumerist individual. I'm just going to... Okay.
Well, just more about how capitalism promotes individualism. It promotes really the consumer slave, because just as you have worker slaves to help the system, you make them consumer slaves as well, which milks them in a particular way. That's why, on the whole, you are encouraged to fit into a box, because it's the best way to milk you.
But I mean, is there something about the individual which is valuable and positive? We've all heard about our different talents and our different passions, and how is that different from this kind of consumerist individual? Got a couple of new faces. Say, what's your name?
Damien.
And
Kate. But
what's your name?
Johnny.
That man over there had his hand up for ages.
Kendrick, isn't it? Yeah. Kendrick, grab the mic.
I think if you had individualism, and everyone was selfish, you'd have socialism by default, because nobody would want to be subservient to anyone else. So everyone would have to work for each other. So it's like nobody would accept anyone having more than them, more power or more money. So being an individual by default creates socialism.
Okay, so there is an element of being an individual in socialism.
I just wanted to say something interesting. Again, I'm not one for very fully formed thoughts, but we've talked about there was something about it being disempowering to be required to fit in to the current system that we have. And I think it's interesting because there's something about fitting in. I mean, in terms of socialism, we would all be required to find a role and fit it. But that's very different. Actually, perhaps the difference is not a requirement to fit, but to find where you can be useful and then find your fit yourself. So maybe it's about taking the power away from being told what you do and finding your passion and harnessing that.
All right, we're getting very philosophical here. Isabel?
I always kind of thought the difference between socialism and capitalism in terms of finding the place where you fit is in socialism, there's no like death penalty for failing. Like, you're not going to starve to death if you can't find the right place. You're under no pressure. Like, it's like coercive under capitalism. Like, under socialism, you still you would be expected to do it, but there's a world of difference. Like, that's the difference between consenting to sex and being raped if you have somebody pointing a gun at your head. And that capitalism is kind of the gun, because if you can't get a job, like I'm terrified I'm not going to be able to get a job after college, because I'm gonna starve to death if I don't. And it's particularly if I'm not living here and I'm in America. That's just like horrifying. But just under socialism, it'd just be like, yes, there would still be pressures because we're humans and we can't build this perfect society. But that's a world of difference. Is I'm not gonna die.
Okay, so the socialism that people around the table at least envisage is one that kind of fosters the individual, let's say, but it's not an urgent request for success.
So I was just thinking about universal income, because that's kind of a thing. It sounds like a real left thing, but it came from the right, I think, effectively, because as everything gets automated and people lose their jobs, capitalism needs people to have money, and they've got no jobs. So universal income kind of it enables capitalism to continue in a way, but it also allows people the freedom to do what they want with their lives without the constraint of having to do something.
I mean, earlier on we were talking about this, and it was a subject that then sort of morphed and evolved into this question about living with your passion. That was. But that's the way Talkaoke goes. Welcome, Talkaoke. Take a seat if you want to. But I mean, whether it's a left-wing thing or a right-wing thing, is it going to be helpful for us as a society to have this universal income? Will it actually help us, be it left-wing or right-wing? Is it something that's going to solve some of the problems we've been talking about today?
Depends on who controls the amount people get, and because people might just be given the basic amount to live, just to live, to exist.
It has to be a bit more than just.
I think the universal basic services is a good idea. Have that, and then give people pocket money.
Okay, so it's got to be a bit of pocket money involved in that. We're talking about universal basic income. It's been a lot of left-wing people around the table proposing it before you arrived. Is it David?
Damien.
I didn't know that this was a right-wing idea. And you're sort of saying that it's because it kind of keeps capitalism going, it keeps the money flowing, kind of thing.
I heard that it came. Someone told me that it came from the right, but that's my own leap of faith. That just as all, like if you go into Tesco's and there's just machines serving you instead of, as those jobs go, capitalism needs people to have money. It's just.
Okay, so in a world where all the checkouts are done by robots, how are people going to get money to buy their Tesco's stuff? And the universal basic income maybe provides that.
And this is why capitalism is fucking stupid.
I think that's interesting that capitalism needs money to keep it going, because actually that's why we've reached a tipping point now. Less and less people have money. This is why capitalism is seeming to crumble. We don't have the money to keep it going, so we're looking for alternatives, and I think that's fascinating.
Okay, so how is that alternative going to present itself? That's quite an interesting question, Ben.
On that point, I think that's an interesting point, but I don't know. I think it's an interesting point to speculate, but also it's not going to run out just because some poor people run out of money, because those poor people are just going to carry on getting fucked over. But I was going to say, like, it's interesting to talk about technology, I think, because on the one hand, people seem like it's one kind of modernist lefty belief is that technology is great because it's going to empower all of us, it's going to abolish work. But then on the other hand, I think we're seeing the kind of exponential curve of technology take off so much now to the point where it's changing our society so much that maybe it's taking away our jobs or changing our engagement with the world. And I think the politics of technology is interesting.
Okay, we're talking politics and technology. We've got a new face at the table. I might just quickly do a round of names. Paul, come and get back involved. We've got spare seats. At the moment, we're kind of talking about... You are the donut theorist. Yeah, I don't really understand the donut economics. I have to say, it didn't make any sense. Now that she's gone, I can say this. It made no sense at all. What is this donut theory of economics? I don't understand it at all. But, then again, I'm just I'm not an economist. Anyway, let's just get a round of names. And this is Talkaoke. It's a freeform talk show. We're kind of talking about a universal basic income and whether technology is actually going to revolutionise things in a good way, a bad way, a bit of both. Let's get some names. We've got Ben, we've got Isabel, we've got Hannah, we've got Kendrick, and what's your name?
Maeve.
Maeve?
Maeve.
Maeve.
It's Irish.
Okay. Oh, what's it? Maeve.
Yeah.
Oh, Maeve, sorry. And Paul, and we've got Stevie on his phone. And what's your name?
Johnny.
And what was it again? Kate and Damien and
Jamil.
And
Harvey Tony.
Tony, great. And I'm Mikey. Right now we're sort of talking about a unit. Come and have a seat. Come and get involved. What's your name?
Jack.
What's the discussion, sorry? Well, at the moment we're sort of talking about this idea of like, would it be more relaxing and just nicer for people to have a universal basic income? Or is it a kind of underhand right-wing idea just to keep the coffers going?
It can be exploited by right-wing governments to put under a limit that people don't have to, so employers can have that as a barrier, which you do now with tax credits.
Yeah.
So it can be universal.
It's a bit like tax credits.
Yeah.
Going further.
Universal basic income is not left or right. It depends how it's managed. Right. You can definitely have a left-wing universal basic income that manages. Not a very sincere answer. Is this sincere for this chat?
Jack, you've come in you've come at the perfect timbre. Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. No one else has got a round of applause the whole night, but there you go. So it's all we're talking about. It depends how it's done. It could be left wing, it could be right wing, it could be middle wing. It kind of depends how it's done. Is it a bit like tax credits where it subsidises employers? Are we even going to have any jobs in the future? We've got a new face. What's his name?
Oscar.
Oscar, I'm not going to do everyone. You've got Tony to the left and Jamil to the right, and that'll do.
I mean, just as a question to you, and I'm going to kind of explain it a bit, but if it's managed by the right wing, is it still going to save lives, though? Because ultimately, I'm an American, and I have to, my country is killing people because they are denying them health care and they are denying them food.
Yeah.
And I'm to be honest, at this point, there's a part of me that just does not give a shit if it comes from the left or the right or what it's meant to do, as long as sentient people stop dying.
Right.
And we just stop people from getting killed. If we can just get that, then I'll get picky about what it's supposed to do in terms of societal pressures. But I don't know if managed from the right wing, I haven't thought about it enough, will it still kill people?
Okay.
Because then I need to be concerned. But
okay. Hang on a sec, Jack. I'll come to you in a second. Let me go to Tony. He's not said anything yet.
We've got to give it a try. The current system for the last 25 years has not been working. Left or right government, let's we as the people give it a try. And it will release people to be more creative and more contributive to their community. And I've been in community work 40 years. We've got to give it a try.
Do you think that'll give people a time and space to actually contribute to their community?
Absolutely, and we'll develop a culture that does that. Obviously, there'll be a shakedown period with people sitting at home on their settees, but there'll be enough culture going around saying, make the best of it, and they'll make more choices that are more in tune with their own lives.
I absolutely do broadly agree in that it gives you time to kind of pursue what you're actually interested in. My issue is if you're a disabled person with a family, does it not amount to a cut for a lot of people? If you're a disabled person with a family, you're actually, if the universal income is at a certain limit, you're losing money. And at what point do you then have a bit on top?
So you think actually, if you've got a universal basic income, some people that need a lot of support might suffer.
And do you not, if you're calling it a cap, an absolute cap, at what point do some people lose out? And then do you have bits on top? And does that, then it's not a universal basic income? Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that just a starting point? Do some people get more? I'm going to come to you in a second, Damien. Stevie?
I've said it already, but I kind of it doesn't like really address inequality because you can just keep people on the bare minimum to survive. And that's why I think basic public services, making everything free, like basic things like having the right to housing, health, thing. As long as that's guaranteed and free, then you can have your social income.
Okay, so more important to have free housing, free healthcare, these kind of things than the basic income. Was it you, Damien? You were going to say something?
Yeah, it's just it's the same as like AI or automation or anything. It's like the guy was saying. It's just who's in control and what. Let's who's in control. What the motive is. If the motive is profit, then people get screwed. If the motive is a better society for everyone, then that can be achieved. So automation, nanotechnology, AI, it can all make things fantastically good or really shit on everyone, apart from the people at the top.
I mean, I'm going to say it because there's not going to be a single person here around the table, but I've seen this on YouTube. Some people believe that the motive of profit leads to a better society for everyone. Not people here, obviously, but so you do hear that when I go on my travels, you know. So, I mean, their motive is certainly high. It's certainly, you know, they've got good intentions with this profit motive.
But are they focusing on the motive rather than the profit? Are they seeing that something is catching some people's imagination and driving them on? What we are arguing is that more people would be captured if something else was driving them. So actually you're getting the minority being driven by profit, and actually what we want is for the most people to be passionate and driven by something else.
Driven by passion?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Can we be driven by passion?
We've never really seen We've never really seen a society that was driven by something other than profit. So how are we to know what that's like?
What about the feudal thing?
Yeah, I mean, like,
the feudal thing driven by profit?
What?
The feudal, because you're the sort of expert on.
No, it was definitely driven by profit. It's driven by the manor lord's profit. They just, because of technological differences and because of social boundaries, they have less ability to extort to a certain degree, the peasantry, or like less effectively because they don't have the tech to do it, really.
Yeah. So we've always had a society driven by profit, be it feudalism or capitalism. Could we have a society driven by passion? Would that work? Jack?
In the future, when there are, if you talk about automation, when there's more robots doing the job, the actual jobs of the future. When we talk about university and tuition fees, everyone talks about getting rid of art degrees. But actually, in the future, if there is going to be more automation, then surely the art degrees are going to be the jobs of the future because they're the jobs that robots cannot do. So the job, poets, musicians, people who are doing art degrees are actually going to be. That's the capital of the future. So surely that is actually the value that you can get. So when you can talk about universal basic income to fund that kind of that passion, those passions that we're talking about, like you say, they're going to be the jobs of the future. If robots can do like the automation that we're we're talking about data input. If you're going to talk about music and art, that's surely the jobs of the future, isn't it?
Okay, so the job, everyone's going to be wanting to do an art degree. We're talking about a passion-driven economy. Kate?
Yeah, I want to actually question this idea of passion and a passion-driven society.
Yeah.
I find it very much part of the status quo at the moment, and I think it's there as this sort of notion that if only we, it's out there. If we can tap into our passion, if we realise it, then money will flow to us. We'll be fine. It's still very individualistic. It doesn't address people like myself and many others who are like, well, I don't have a passion. I just don't, But I'm connected to other human beings. My families are important. I like living in a community. I don't have a passion, but I absolutely think I should be doing some kind of meaningful work, and that should be part of my life. So this whole notion of passion stuff, I actually think is quite suspect. I'm not overly keen. No.
Okay, hang on.
What word would you use? What word would you use instead of society by passion?
Do I need another word for passion?
Okay, well, that's something that goes to the whole table. I mean, we just don't want a profit-driven society, but what else could we have?
I was kind of wanting to talk about what passion is, and I mean, from my experience, I don't think there's this thing of find your passion, find your way, and find what you love and everything. But I think passion is grown. Passion is something that you work at, and it grows over time as something that you actually invest in, and you actually grow.
Are you happy with this idea of a passion-driven economy or a society? You're shaking.
I think it. I don't know.
Because I mean, the thing is, we don't like the profit-driven society, but we're trying to come up with something else. Tony's got, I think it's a good point, Tony. What else? How are we going to call it? What are we going to call it? I'll come to you in a second because we've got a new face over here.
Okay. What about a compassion-driven society, where we all work to do good, to fix the millions of problems in the world? You know what I mean? World hunger, housing, education, medication, irrigation. What about a compassion-led society?
I think you nailed it. You nailed it there.
And the winner is the man in the
What's his name?
Andy.
Andy, well done, Andy. I think you definitely aced it there with a compassion-driven society.
How much money can we get from this compassion?
Can we monetize it? Paul, I've got a point here.
I was just going to cautionary tale as someone who works in the industry, the hype of the tech industry.
Yeah.
I think once this is it, I came across, there were 20 years ago, there were 4,000. Washing a car is a relatively simple robotic problem. And 20 years ago, there were 4,000 robotic car wash machines in the UK, and now there are only 1,000.
Yeah.
Robots are quite expensive.
Right.
They don't always work.
So you're saying people are actually cheaper than robots?
Yes, it's a lot of hype.
Only in the short term, though.
Okay.
No, they break down. They need maintenance.
Okay.
They need.
When it comes to like checkouts, will the robots take over?
I think some of those. Well, if people adopt them, yeah, they would work. But there is a lot of hype in the tech industry.
Okay. Are robots actually going to take over? Kendrick.
I think with automation, it depends who's in charge, because if the workers control the means of production, automation makes things easier, gives you more leisure time, makes your work easier.
So you're
but
saying
under capitalism, it makes you redundant, because it's like, why should I pay this person to do something it takes them 5 hours when they get a robot to do it in 5 minutes.
So if the workers own the robots, it would be fine?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
How do I get your job? How do I get your job?
Oh, you just let me give you a card. We're recruiting.
I'm Swindon's community poet. I've got a 6-liner I wrote in India, if you want it.
Only if you sit down. We can't deliver it standing up because it's. Paul.
For your art.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, I wrote this in India. It's when new people meet new people. When East meets West. When East meets West, we are both blessed with insight. In spite of what the media portrays, he does this, she does that. When East meets West, we blow the media cover and discover one another. I thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, so food for thought.